Hello, everybody. So this is a LinkedIn Live where we'll be talking about fat loss, DNA, and sleep. So the basic structure for this will be essentially we'll start 20 minutes of me and Alex talking, questioning. We've got 10 minutes for audience questions. So if you do have a question during this, then put in the comments. We'll try and answer it during this stream. And then finally, for the last 15 minutes, Alex is going to talk us through my DNA tests, which could be some good coaching for me and I think very interesting for a lot of people. So to kick us off, tell us a bit more about yourself, Alex. And I've always got a cheeky question, which is basically, how was your sleep? So I'm curious.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me, Matt. Yeah, not doing too badly. I have developed a bit of a cold the past couple of days, which, interestingly, I believe is very, very strongly correlated with the poor night's sleep I've had the past 2 days. For those who don't know, I travel full time. We're currently house sitting in rural Wales, and the house which we're at is right on the road. It's very rural, but surprisingly on a main road. And basically, the 50-mile-an-hour winds, the lashing rain, and Welsh drivers breaking the speed limit has unfortunately impacted my sleep, and that is basically the only thing which triggers illness for me. I don't want to say I'm perfect, but I've got quite a lot of nutrition, exercise, recovery, etc. down pretty well. I don't get ill very often, but yesterday and today I felt a bit crap. Basically driven by the poor sleep that I've had. So to answer your question, not the best sleep, could be better, but mostly illness and factors outside of my control. But moving on to the topic of today, I am Alex, the DNA fat loss coach. I help busy professionals who've tried traditional methods of losing weight that didn't work for them, mostly due to time restriction, lose weight sustainably using DNA-driven data. Lose weight and keep it off using highly personalized coaching. So that's what I'm all about.
So I'm super intrigued. I'm actually looking to lose weight, like body fat myself right now. So it's I think it's a very common topic for a lot of people. I had a question from someone who DM'd me before. They're just asking sort of what changes do you make after you did DNA testing? Like, how did it impact you personally?
Good question. So I met Meg. So we met coming up to 5 years ago. I was 86 kilos, not super heavy by any means. I don't know what that is in pounds, maybe 185 pounds or so. 5'10". I'm currently 70 kilos, 150 pounds. Again, still 5'10". So I lost about 16 kilos, 35 pounds or so, and have kept it off. So in 2020, early 2020, I did a DNA test. The key things that it did for me, we were discussing this before, it made me challenge my beliefs, right? I was almost cocky, should we say, about what I thought I knew. I was like, oh, I'm doing all the right things. I'm working out, I'm eating out of Tupperwares. I'm going to the gym loads. I'm pushing weights and all these things that everyone tells you to do. But I had, way more body fat than I needed. My sleep wasn't that great. My performance wasn't that great. My brain, mental cognition, should we say, wasn't that great. So did the DNA test. Honestly, it was so overwhelming. There's over 100 insights. It was so overwhelming. I didn't actually do anything for the first month. I got it and I just looked at it and went, well, it's way too much. And then, one day I sat down, not doing anything, twiddling my thumbs, thought I'd have a little bit of a scroll. Biggest thing that jumped out to me first was caffeine sensitivity. So for those who don't know, caffeine sensitivity is very, very genetically driven. Now, sensitivity impacts a couple of things. So one being essentially the time it takes your body to digest caffeine. So for me, it takes me significantly longer to digest caffeine, like double, triple as long as other people, right? So that means even if I stop drinking at, say, midday, even by the time I go to bed at 10, 11 p.m., there is caffeine still in my system that will impact my sleep, right? So that was one of the biggest things. I wasn't having any significant amount of caffeine, probably 200 milligrams, maybe 300 milligrams, like really not vast amounts. But I'm so sensitive that it was still messing with my sleep. Now, another component to the high sensitivity is how it impacted me mentally. So I'd get quite a lot of racing thoughts at night, anxious thoughts during the day. A lot of that which I'd always had, right? So at the time I was 25. I'd always had that. Therefore, I thought that was normal. Therefore, I never questioned it. The DNA test came up with this data that's like, hold on, I'm really, really sensitive, like top upper end of very, very small population have these genetic variants which drive this high sensitivity. Like, really? That's strange. So I was like, oh, I'll test it out and see what happens. Tested it out. Guess what happened? I started sleeping better. I started feeling more relaxed, started basically enjoying my life a bit more. Huge impact, right? Felt better, felt more rested, felt more recovered, better mental health, should we say, more confident. I'm not going to say that the sleep was the sole driver of the weight loss. I do not believe that's true. I think it is definitely one of the contributing factors. So the other contributing factors, one of the key insights, and I've spotted that you have this insight in your data, which I was just having a quick scroll through before this call, was how our body responds to different types of fat. Okay, so we can broadly say there are two buckets of fat, right? There's saturated fats and there's unsaturated fats. In simplified view, these are meat, dairy-based fats, saturated, generally speaking, and unsaturated is plant and fish-based fats. Okay. Typically, I don't believe this fully to be true. However, typically, the other thing I should mention, coconut fits in the saturated fat bucket. Strangely, coconut, most of other plants are in unsaturated, but coconut is in the saturated. By the way, if it's solid,
I'm just leaving notes, so forgive me. So saturated fat is like the meat, the dairy?
Basically meat and dairy, yeah.
Okay. And then non-saturated fats is the fish.
Unsaturated, we call it, yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
fish, plants, olive oil, avocado, nuts, seeds, those sorts of things.
Okay.
Technically, we can split unsaturated into mono and poly, but we don't need to do that right now. Anyway, the key thing is, and I should have really known this because I'm half Italian, so you think Mediterranean-based diet would obviously suit me. Mediterranean being more heavy on the unsaturated, so the plants, olives, olive oil, avocados, nuts, seeds, fish, these sorts of things. Slightly less heavy on the meat, or at least the fattier meats. They're not having like beef brisket every day for lunch, should we say? But I was eating because I'd read and watched loads of YouTube videos and blogs and stuff about the healthiness of coconut oil. So I was having coconut oil for my cooking. I was eating coconut. I was having coconut milk in my curries. And I was basically, probably 80% of my fat intake was coming from saturated fats. And one of the simplest shifts I made was not necessarily reducing my fat intake, that's the key thing I want to highlight here, but changing my fat intake. Less saturated, more unsaturated. Basically a 1-for-1, right? I felt better. My digestion improved. Felt like my health and energy improved. I had more consistent kind of, it's not a sexy term, but I call it flat, consistent energy. Like we tend to go throughout the day like this, up and down, up and down, up and down. And really, I just want to wake up and just have energy until I go to bed, right? Maybe have a little drop off towards the bedtime. So I feel a bit tired and that kind of makes me go to bed, but I just want to have good energy all day long so I can do whatever I want to do. And I just felt like I had way, way more of that. I stepped on the scales and I kept losing weight. That was definitely one of the big contributing factors that led me to drop 16 kilos. So go from 86 to about 70. I kind of at 70, 71, but I've never really jumped up any higher than that. Very, very stable. Unless I have a massive celebratory weekend, should we say, and then I gain 2 kilos of water weight, but that comes off a few days later, so it's not a body fat. So that happens. Yeah, those are two of the big ones. Some other kind of smaller things which impacted how I feel and the foods that I focus on a bit more. My body needs more omega-3s than most people. And importantly, a little bit of sciencey stuff for you. So there are two buckets of omega-3s, right? Plant-based, animal-based. A lot of people will really push plant-based omega-3s, saying that they are the be all and end all, they're going to help you reduce inflammation, they're going to give you all the brain benefits, all these heart health benefits. And sure, they have some benefits. They're good, they're worth having. However, fundamentally what our body does when we take in these plant-based omega-3s is we transfer them, can't think of the word, translate them into what you can get naturally from animals. So it turns something called ALA into EPA and DHA, right? This into that. That, which we can get from animals directly, is what the body uses, and you get massive brain, heart health benefits, reductions in inflammation, and all these sort of really, really important things, right? So I was focused quite heavily on this plant-based stuff. I now focus very, very heavily on animal-based omega-3 sources. So it's not just about taking a fish oil. I need more than most fish oil supplements can give. Fish oil supplements might give you like 0.5 gram to 1 gram of actual omega-3s. My body's like kind of not needing, but runs best when I'm talking like 2 or 3 grams a day, right? So I take a fish oil supplement, and I regularly have, like yesterday I had wild salmon for lunch. Today I'm going to have a sardine salad later on. I just make that a big part of my focus, not only for the protein content, which I could also talk about, also for the omega-3 content, anti-inflammatory, super beneficial heart health, brain health benefits, cognition, all these sorts of things. Another component which I need more of genetically is vitamin B12, which basically, in short, comes from all animal-based food. So it's the one supplement that, well, there's many really, but the one key thing which vegans, vegetarians cannot get, because B12 is not found naturally in plant-based foods. Okay, so if you're a vegetarian vegan, you should be supplementing with B12. It's very, very important. There's mostly crappy variants out there called cyanocobalamin. This is the artificial form. Your body can absolutely do nothing with it. It's a waste of time. It's only going to block your body's ability to absorb actual B12. Make sure you either eat meat, which is what I recommend, or fish, or you have something called methylcobalamin. Right, that is actually going to improve your energy. That's actually going to improve your B12 levels.
Interesting. I'm going to have to send you some pictures of my supplements, because I actually am a vegetarian, give or take. There's some exceptions to that. So it's particularly interesting for me to hear this. Going back to a few things you mentioned. So first of all, like you went through this journey from 85 kilograms to 70, and I see some of your pictures on LinkedIn now and then. Like, you got pretty ripped, respect. I have to say that. What specific changes were in the diet before and after? Like, what are things that you meant? Like, you mentioned the change in fat. Like, what are things that you were eating then that you're not eating now, and you're still eating great food? I see this on LinkedIn too. So I'm just curious, like, specifically, like, if you could just give a few examples of what that actually was in practice.
Yeah. So a big point to highlight here is that when people do DNA tests, like my clients, there is no, oh, I suddenly stop eating this food because my body says it's not that great for me. There's none of that, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I don't absorb or perform that well when I have lots of saturated fat. Does that mean I don't eat butter? No, absolutely not. I still eat butter, and I still eat, fatty beef and all these things, right? I enjoy those. I just have them a bit less frequently, and slightly more of the time I will have, say, more fish, leaner meats, olive oils, avocados, those sorts of fats instead, right? So that's a massive part. I definitely kind of swayed more in towards the Mediterranean style. I'd kind of class, people like to say, oh, what diet do you eat? And I'm like, I don't really eat a diet. I also don't like that terminology, but if someone like held a gun to my head and said, basically, what diet do you eat? I would say kind of high protein Mediterranean with a lot of flexibility, right? So there's heavy influences from lean proteins, so fish, meats, leaner meats, lots of vegetables. I like vegetables. My mum's Italian, so I've learned to cook properly, should we say? Thankfully. Thank you, Mum. I eat quite a few legumes. I find they work very well for me in terms of adding something else to the plate, right? I'm not huge, not that I'm suggesting they're bad or anything, but I'm just not huge personal preference wise in terms of like pastas and rice and those sorts of things. They just don't do that much for me. So I'd much rather eat a bit more of the, should we say, protein, the meat, the fish, the whatever. Maybe have some beans with it, maybe do like a lentil dal or something, really nice spice thing, and then have a load of vegetables with it. That's the way I prefer to eat. And that's the way that sits better for me. So another one of the insights which I didn't cover was folate. So folate roughly translates to leaf in Latin. So basically, leafy green stuff is rich in folate, but also the thing which is rich in folate, which I need more of based on my genetics, is legumes. So beans, lentils, chickpeas, those sorts of things. So I tend to have more of those than most people. But the added benefit is that they bring along a ton of fiber, which helps to maintain fullness, satisfaction, gut health, etc. And also, I'm not going to say this is equal, but it's an added bonus, plant-based protein. So my main protein sources are from animals. I want to make that very clear. And I do feel that is best for most people. Matt, maybe we'll talk about that. But I like to, there's no downside to adding in some like plant-based protein sources, like natural plant-based protein sources, I should say, like actual beans, lentils, legumes, those sorts of things. Just yesterday, this might appeal to everyone, by the way, and I don't suggest you have to eat like this, but I like playing around with food. I think it's a fun thing. It's obviously beneficial for us to do so, just kind of playing around with different flavors and different ingredients and seeing what you can make with it. So I basically put a tin of chickpeas and a tin of kidney beans in a blender, cooked canned ones for ease. I put in some of my favorite ingredient ever, nutritional yeast, which ticks a load of boxes, including folate and protein and fiber. And then I basically just added like whatever spices I could find. So I put some cumin in, put a bit of olive oil in, put a bit of salt and pepper, smoked paprika, and just whizzed it all up. Right, add some water, whizzed it all up. It turned into not like a hummus, but almost like a savory, kind of creamy. Kidney beans kind of give that nice creamy texture. I think I put some soy sauce or tamari or something, kind of umami flavor. And I had that alongside the fish that I was having and then a load of vegetables, right? So I think it's opened my eyes to more, part of the benefit of DNA testing is it's challenged those norms. It's like, oh, I go to the gym, therefore I should just eat chicken and broccoli, or I should just eat chicken, rice and broccoli. It's like, I hadn't looked much beyond spag bol, chicken, broccoli, curry. Do you know what I mean? A really simple, basic foundational meals which we learn as students, we say, or we learn from our parents. And the DNA test helped me go, oh, okay, folate, like, what's that doing for me? Why do I need more of it? How can I get more of it? Okay, I need more of these things. Okay, how can I include more of those? And then it's basically been a 3-year-long experiment. And I continue experimenting. I just want to be very clear, for my clients' sake. Like, I could happily eat what I ate last week on repeat, right? If that's what I want to do, I could just eat that for the rest of my life. We'll be pretty happy. Which there's a lot of variety there. But for clients, the more ideas, the more recommendations, the more recipes that I can share with them, the easier it is for them to transform their health and their lives. So I continually do, should we say, market research, product research with recipes, meals, food. I tried tons of stuff. Sometimes it turns out terribly. Great. I take that on. I don't tell them until I've approved it. And don't know if she's listening, but my fiancée Meg, she has a much more discerning palate than mine. I will eat anything. So I'm the worst person to go, oh, this works great. John, you should also eat this because it's going to benefit with your folate and B12, whatever. It's no, I try it, go, oh, I think it's pretty good. Meg, what do you think? She gives it a go. If it gets her approval, I know it's good to go to the clients. So I continually do lots of product testing on those sorts of things.
Interesting. So, and a note to anyone watching, you can watch the recording later. So I've been trying to write notes and I'm just like, there's just too many things to take notes. It's really hard. And also, if you have questions, you can leave in the event group. I think most people will be watching via LinkedIn, but also on YouTube and Instagram, I believe. So another question for you. I've seen some of your client wins, let's say on LinkedIn, and there's lots of very good recommendations and testimonials. Can you give me just some fun or extreme examples of what you've had in the last few years working with people?
Good question. Good question. So there's a few that spring to mind. One is actually about sleep, quite nicely. So in my example about sleep, the key thing was I'd never kind of questioned it. It was just something that I'd always done, right? But fortunately, I did a DNA test at 25, right? Now 29, nearly 30. This client, I think in their 40s or so, he had always had caffeine, right? Always had caffeine, always struggled a bit with sleep, always worked long hours, right? He got his DNA test back. He had the same response as me. He was in that upper tier, kind of uber sensitivity, should we say. Oh my God, he's like, Alex, can't really believe it. Like, I've been having caffeine all my life. This is how it's been impacting me? I was like, yeah. So we tested it. We gradually reduced, and that's a very important thing. Never go cold turkey, otherwise you will hate yourself, hate me for giving you that advice, and feel worse for it. Gradually reduced his intake. Got to a point where a few weeks later, or a month later or so, he was not caffeine free, but probably having about a quarter or something that he was having. And he's like, Alex, I feel so much better. I'm so much more confident, so much more relaxed. The confidence piece was really interesting because he was losing weight at the time, but he had a fair amount to lose, and it wasn't because he'd lost like 2 stone. He's like, wow, I look so much better. I feel way more confident. It was like, I've lost a few pounds in the past few weeks, but like mentally, my outlook, the way that I'm kind of seeing life and even seeing myself has just totally improved. So that is one of the best things for sure. Another guy, interesting one about fats. So in my example, I'm kind of Mediterranean, so it's more of this, less of that, right? In terms of fats. In some examples, it's not super common, but in some examples, people just don't need that much fat. They do better with, and there's a lifestyle component to this as well. So you always have to consider genetics and lifestyle. That kind of overlap, because theory is great, but it has to be reality and fit into someone's life. So these people were more active. Sorry, this person was more active, but he had a response to protein, to fat. Both of his responses to fat were not that great. So basically, I was like, look, John, or whatever his name is, I'm calling him John for anonymity. I think we really need to look at fat intake. So we basically shifted his carb intake. And this is crazy advice from a fat loss coach. Eat more carbs and have a bit less fat. In week 1, he lost 4 pounds, which is dramatic, I know. But he's now stabilizing at about 2 pounds a week. It's about a kilo a week, right? He's a big guy, got reasonable amount to lose, but sustainable, healthy, easy. He says he can't believe how much better he's feeling. The weight's coming off nicely. And interestingly, normally when people have a dramatic weight drop, they lose it because of carbs. They drop the carbs, their weight drops dramatically because they've lost all their water weight. Right, but this time I told him to eat more carbs, and he dropped his fat, and then he saw this drop. So yeah, watching your fat intake is important because of calorie density of fat. Being aware of fat intake based on what you need specifically. Some people are recommending quite a high fat diet. Others are. Thank you, Lisa Marie, for watching, checking in. Happy Monday. Thank you for Meg. That's my fiance, by the way. It's talking about how I describe my product testing. Yeah, so there's hugely personal components to carb intake and fat intake. I cannot say what is better for someone and just say, oh, everyone should just eat less fat. I cannot say that. I cannot say that everyone should eat more carbs or less carbs. I just cannot say that to anyone. So whenever people try and ask me for advice, this is funny. Whenever people try and ask me for advice, I'm that annoying dickhead who's like, well, firstly, I've got to ask you 20 questions because I feel very strongly, I have some strong principles about not giving blanket advice. I don't know if you know, I used to work in the weight loss industry, rapid weight loss industry, worked in marketing, selling one-to-many products like pills, powders, shakes, that sort of shit. And yes, it was crap. And I left on moral reasons because I didn't believe in the products that we were selling, because I saw from the data, someone would buy, let's say person A would buy, and then 3 months later or so, they'd buy again. I was like, hold on a second, and then buy again. another 3 months later, another bag. I was like, why that? This is amazing business model. Don't get me wrong. You want, if you're selling e-commerce, you want repeat purchases, right? That's what drives your business. But we're selling weight loss products. Why are they losing more weight? Like, are they wasting away? I know how much people were losing on these products, right? They were losing dramatic amounts of weight very, very quickly. They were restricted to like 600 to 800 calories a day, which is fucking bonkers, if I'm being honest, and just not really safe for most people. Why are they rebuying our products? Oh, goosh, is like the moment I was like, it's because they've regained all the weight, isn't it? Oh my god, I'm selling. I was in charge of the marketing. We were spending 10 grand a day on ads across various platforms for these various companies, all selling this sort of stuff. And I was like, oh my god, I'm basically, sounds a bit
You are the
dramatic.
problem.
I am the fucking problem. Literally. So that was in 2016, 17, 18, early 19. I left, and I vowed to myself, but I'll be audible about it. I vowed to do exactly the opposite of what that company did. They were selling cheap, one-to-many, ineffective, unsustainable weight loss solutions.
Mm-hmm.
Now I sell expensive, highly personalized, one-to-one, data-driven, personalized coaching. And that's, not everyone. It's not for everyone. Some people don't believe in coaching. That's fine. I can't help you if you don't believe it's going to work. But for those who do, look at the data. We look at the science, and we make changes based on that. And I don't want to say that it's the most amazing thing in the world, but just ask my clients, see my client testimonials, their videos and stuff, and things that they say. Take it from them. Don't take it from me.
Yeah, well, it speaks for itself. And I think one thing I really like is that in the industry, you say do carnivore, vegan, this, only eat meat, only do this, only eat this thing. This superfoods will save you. This, like, I just hear all the time these extreme claims from everybody, and it's kind of like if you followed every single one of them, you'd eat nothing. And it's painfully clear that everyone has different genetics and different responses to food, and it seems like the only way for a lot of people to get the results is a personalized way of doing it. And I totally relate to that. And even for me, like, if I compare my life now to what it was even just 3-4 years ago, like, by fixing sleep and by a lot of change in my nutrition as well, I'm not saying sleep's my only solution either. It's a holistic approach, and I have days where my energy is just like this all day. I never had that before, and it's an outcome of this. To touch on some of the sleep aspects, like genetic aspects of sleep. So I'm also doing a little bit of work with DNA testing with clients around sleep. Quite inspired by your stuff, I must add. A lot of people don't know if they're night owl or morning person. So we have these people who are trying to get up at 5 a.m. because the productivity influencer tells them to, and it's not working. And it's just like with dieting. For sleep, it has to be personalized too. That there's no like 5 a.m. is the only time to wake up, or you got to be in bed at 8. It's so much variation that's just down to genetics, and also how your childhood was, how a lot of factors, endogenous factors, that are way beyond our control. And I'd hope that we're moving forward in the world where we do have more personalized approaches, and we have a bit more understanding of the nuance. Because anyone could talk about nutrition, anyone could talk about sleep, but the devil's in the detail, right? And that's what I like about your posts and about what you're saying. That's the added value. I'll add one more time. If people do want to add questions, they should ask soon. So I think in the next few minutes, you can actually take a look at my DNA. I may have one more question that was sent to me prior. And that's basically how sleep impacted your fat loss journey. So you've kind of touched upon it, but it'd be interesting if there's anything specific that came from that.
Yeah, so just to riff off what you're saying there, probably one of the biggest things which kept me stuck, as in 86 kilos and not getting below, say, 78. I can never really get below that kind of barrier, or sustain it. I'll sustain it. I got fairly lean at times, right, for holidays. I did keto, I did several diets and things, but it was always extreme. Oh crap, I've got 5 weeks. Right, try and lose as quickly as possible, and then poof, it would all go up. following what other people did and believing that would work for me I think is the biggest mistake almost anyone can make, right? When it comes to some sort of health change that you want to do. It's really annoying being in my position as a content creator, whatever you want to call it. I share stuff on LinkedIn, people then contact me, and that's how I generate business. I don't want to write a post about, like, I've done so in the past, but the comments are really annoying. I don't want to write posts like 5 foods that work great for me, because people will go, that's what I need. And they think those foods are going to fix all their problems. And more often than not, it's not those foods, because their foods are different, right? Oh, for John, it's going to be this because they need more B6 and folate than Steve, who needs to focus on selenium and omega-3s, right? Their foods are going to be different. So I hate talking about like, oh, eat this food because it's going to fix your life and problems. But that's the stuff which people, unfortunately, they want to be consuming, literally and figuratively. Back to sleep. Not back. Well, I could actually get back to sleep, but
we can also look at the DNA now if you like, just so we're on time. So if you like to share, I don't know if you want to share your screen. So I sent you my DNA overview. So I don't know if you want to share screen or if you just want to talk through it. And
no, I'll share screen. Present. Share screen. Right, let me know when you can see that.
Here we go. I'll add it to the stage. So hopefully everyone can see that. I can see it. Okay.
Perfect. Okay. Conscious of time because there's so much I can go into. So I don't want to scare anyone off, but there's 180 pages in this report. We're just going to look at the summary. There's over 100 insights. There's loads and loads of detail. Obviously, I'm just going to pick out a few key elements that can help Matt with his goals. Now, I want to highlight, I asked Matt before this what his goals were. That is the most important thing. I do not like to give advice without understanding where someone wants to get to. Someone looking to lose weight, gain weight, improve health, improve energy, focus on sleep, whatever, the advice is going to be different based on that. So the advice that I'm giving is for Matt, for his goal of basically getting a 6-pack in the next 3 months or so. Is that right?
I want a 6-pack the 6th of July specifically.
6th of July. Cool. Well, we've got a time-driven, data-driven date. Yep. We have some data to drive some actions. So, number one thing I want to talk about, by the way, saturated fat response, poor response, unsaturated fat beneficial. This is what I was talking about. So the further left means high propensity towards fat gain, higher risk of heart disease in this instance, how it feels digestively. Saturated fat for some can be very heavy. Unsaturated can be less heavy, more beneficial, should we say. So this is one of the things, like these two responses is what I would call kind of Mediterranean style fat intake. Less on the heavy meat fats, more on the fish fats, olive oils, avocados, that sort of thing. So that's point number one, I guess. Also being aware of the density of fat, regardless of the source. So fat is over twice as calorie dense as carbs and protein. Okay, so the example I like to use is 1 tablespoon of oil, any oil, is about the same as a slice of bread, right? How easy is it to add multiple tablespoons of oil on a salad, on whenever we're frying or cooking something? Doing a stir fry, we just drain the oil over it. Super easy to add a load of oil. Hundreds of calories can rack up. You would never, well, you'd be much more conscious of adding like 3 or 4 slices of bread to a meal, right? So they're not fully equal, but just worth being aware of that first and foremost. This response is pretty rare. I've looked at best part of 100 DNA tests. Actually made a little audible noise when I read this just before the call. I was like, oh. So this is probably number 4 I've seen. So I reckon you're in the top kind of 5% when it comes to protein response. What does this mean? If I can remember the page. Here we go. Your genetic profile is linked with a highly beneficial response to protein based on these 2 genes and the way they are sorry, the variants that you have within those. This means that protein will have a very positive effect on weight management, muscle maintenance, muscle gain, and general health. You have the ability to break down protein to amino acids more so than others. You can take supplements if you want. That's a separate thing. This line here, you have the ability to break down protein to amino acids more so than others. So protein gets broken down into amino acids. These are the building blocks of muscle, of things that we need to use within the body. So like connective tissue, anything is made up of these amino acids, which then get created as and when we need. Now, a lot of the, should we say, outdated science will say that you have to consume a maximum of 30 grams of protein per meal. And therefore, if you've got a protein target of something like 150 grams, you should consume 5 meals of 30 grams throughout the day, right, to maximize absorption. But firstly, the science is outdated, and there's new studies to show that's not the case. But you also have the genetic ability to break down protein more so than others. So therefore, if you wanted to, one of the benefits of this protein response is you can have larger protein-heavy meals. So you might have heard the term OMAD or TUMAD, like 1 meal a day, 2 meals a day. I've played around with those. I think they have merit in certain cases. You can benefit from eating lots of protein in one meal, taking a big long break, going doing a big 6-hour work stint, or going for a walk, going exploring a city, and then having another 70 grams of protein later on, right? That's fine. That works well for you. That's something that you can use. So if you want to change your body composition, improve your health, this is one of the first places I will double down, especially if you are kind of vegetarian, which is what I got the impression of.
Yeah.
Some examples. Do you eat any meat, by the way, or fish or anything?
I do have salmon and some seafood ad hoc, but day to day, my main source of protein would be grass-fed whey protein and eggs, and now and then cheese.
Okay, cool. Eggs, fantastic. Quality, very, very important. Interestingly, side point, the quality of this applies to any meat really. The quality of that animal, aka what it has been fed, how it has been raised, will impact the breakdown of fat. Okay, so we have inflammatory fats, we have anti-inflammatory fats, we have kind of more beneficial fats, etc. The higher the quality of egg, aka pasture-raised, grass-fed beef, not pasture-raised eggs, will have a better quality of fat, which is better for us, more anti-inflammatory and so on. So something to consider there. A recommendation I would make based on this is, if you can get it, and you can tend to order these things on Amazon, with your eggs, I'm a huge fan of eggs, massive fan, I eat plenty. However, eggs are a protein and a fat source. Okay, so it's very, very important to know, to get, say, 30 grams of protein, which is a reasonable amount of protein, not a massive amount, but a reasonable amount, you have to have like 4 large eggs. Most people don't tend to do like 4 large eggs. Most people will kind of have 3 or so, maybe even 2. 3 would get you about 20, 22 grams. 2 would only give you about 15, which is just not really that much when we consider one decent sized chicken breast will contain about 50 grams of protein, right? So you'd have to have a lot of eggs to eat the equivalent of chicken breast. So what you can do, and what I recommend, depending on how you have your eggs, I tend to go scrambled or omelette style, is throw in egg whites with those eggs. Okay, so I'd do, say, 3 or 4 whole eggs, and then do, say, 100 ml, 200 ml of egg whites. Now, what those egg whites do, that kind of anatomy of an egg is quite interesting. Half of the protein, all of the fat, and all of the nutrients are in the yolk, which leaves the white with half of the protein, but basically nothing else. There's no fat, there's no carbs, there's no water. It's just basically water and protein. That's basically all egg whites are. They're really boring, really, really boring. However, you should also never have egg whites by themselves, because your body can't actually absorb the protein in them very well. So what you should do is combine them with eggs, but take your eggs and add more egg whites to them. So then you get the benefit of the egg, or the nutrients of the egg, but the extra protein from the egg white.
So quick question.
Go.
I mean, you might lead to what's the best way of doing it? So I noticed you can sometimes buy egg white cartons, or you just talk about taking the yolk out the egg.
I would buy cartons, so then you don't waste any eggs. So I'd buy really good quality eggs, have say 3 or 4 of those each time you have them, and then have a carton of eggs that you just egg white, sorry, in the fridge, and just pour a hefty glug whenever you do your eggs. Really bulk it out, add plenty of flavor, season it well, make sure it's not boring for you. And then key thing is don't then add the fat back. So people go, oh, I'm going to use egg whites and then going to cook it in 3 tablespoons of butter. And it's like, what's the point in that? Just back at square one. So use the egg whites for their protein, but don't use them by themselves. Your body, you actually drain, is it vitamin B6, I think? Your body loses B6, kind of energy, health, metabolism sort of thing. Sorry, immune function. If you have egg whites by themselves, or if you have raw egg whites. So do not have them by themselves. Also, they're just bloody boring if you have them by themselves. Have them with eggs. You'll get all the benefit. All the benefit of the healthy fats, all the benefit of the protein, all the benefit of the absorption of that protein, which is very, very important. You are not what you eat, you are what you absorb, right? You have to actually absorb the nutrients to get benefit from them. And then go from there. So that's one of those tips. Right, we're running out of time, so I'm going to whiz through a couple more. This section is very important for anyone watching. This is the vitamins or minerals section. What this means, by the way, increased risk, is that based on your genetics, your body does not absorb this vitamin as well as most other people. Okay, so this is not a blood test. It's not telling you that you have a B6 deficiency. This is not what it's saying. It's saying that your body has a lower efficiency of absorbing that thing. So for example, if you took in 100 units of B6, an average Joe took in 100 units of B6, you could be at deficiency because of the way your genetics absorb that vitamin. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Perfect. So therefore, the typical advice is to just consume more of that thing. Because if you consume 150, even if you have a 30% reduced efficiency, you're still going to get enough, right? However, with B6, it's a bit interesting because when we take in B6, what we do is we translate it. I cannot remember that right word. We digest it, we transfer it into something else called P5P. It's got a longer name, but we don't need to know it. So we translate it into something called P5P. Now that P5P goes and does stuff in the body, okay? However, the B6 deficiency thing here actually means that your body does not translate B6 into P5P very well at all. So adding more B6 is just kind of throwing mud at the wall and not actually doing anything. So what should you do? Well, my recommendation is to take a P5P supplement. And that kind of, rather than trying to wade through the water to cross the river, just land on the other side of the water, right? So take a P5P supplement. That would be my recommendation there. They're very widely available. Just go on Amazon, look for P5P. It will say something about B6 on there, and that will help there. B12 deficiency. So this is one to look out for because of your risks, because your vegan type nature. Sorry, vegetarian roughly type nature. I would probably just take, in your case, I'd probably just take a supplement. Really, really important thing to know, make it methylcobalamin, okay? B12 is cobalamin, right? But it has a pre thing, which states whether it's natural or artificial. Cyano, which you'll find in almost all supplements, is the crappy one. Avoid it. Cyanocobalamin. You want to look for methyl, METHYL, methyl cobalamin. That is what you want. B12, very focused around energy. Very, very useful. Most people need more of that. Selenium, driver of thyroid health. Thyroid basically plays a massive role in your metabolism. How you function. Oh, I'm just going to have to get the door. Sorry. Can you do the talking for a minute?
Of course.
Delivery.
I love talking. Well, we're coming towards the end, but I think we'll let Alex wrap up when he comes back. So I've got a lot of notes down already from this. So it's already blown my mind. There's a lot of kind of actual steps I want to take coming from this. In terms of sleep, in terms of genetics, I think the things people just need to know as a summary is, first of all, how long you need to sleep is not just dictated by your genetics, So if you've got a friend who's sleeping 6 hours a day, he's waking up at 5 a.m. and all of this, and you're doing the same and you just can't, there's a very high chance it's down to your genetics rather than there's something wrong with you. If you're a night owl or morning person, this is largely genetic. So if you are finding you just naturally want to go to bed at 11, 12, 1 a.m. and your partner's going to bed at 9 or 10, it could be largely a genetic factor. There's a lot more in terms of sleep genetics, but them two things, well, as well as the caffeine we mentioned before, be kind of the three areas that people really need to understand when it comes to sleep. Anyway, I'll let you quickly wrap up on the DNA aspects, Alex. I feel if you give me more advice, you're gonna have to invoice me. But it's been really helpful so far. So it'd be good to just have a quick wrap up from you, and also just let people know how they can contact you after that.
Cool. I always forget to do that last bit, so I'll do that first. If you have questions, if you have any curiosity, interest about this, go to my profile, have a look at what's there, send me a message. I don't use a website at this time. I find it's too impersonal. Hopefully you've got from this conversation that everything I do is entirely one-to-one and all about you, right? So your program will look different if you decide to sign up. Will look different to Joe's program, to Dave's program, to Suzanne's program, right? So don't ask me how it works, because I can't tell you how it works, because your program will be different to everyone else's, right? Based on the data, based on your lifestyle, based on what you have on, based on your time commitment. So just message me, we'll have a chat. I'm not very salesy. I just want to have chats with people and just want to help. So yeah, have a chat with me, send me a message. Let's go from there. So yeah, let's finish off selenium. Selenium is not really well known, which is interesting because it plays a big part in thyroid health. There's two elements that have big function in thyroid health. One is iodine and one is selenium. Iodine tends to get more of the news or more of the limelight, should we say. Selenium doesn't. They come from similar-ish sources. So if you're eating seafood, you're going to be, you're going to be getting some iodine, you're going to be getting some selenium. But there's an interesting stat here, which will kind of good to wrap up on. If you consume a food that says it's high in, I don't know, B12 or something. No, let's go with high in folate. The actual numbers on that per serving, right? I hate per serving, but let's go with per serving, will be roughly 40 to 70%, right? The food is high in this thing. If you eat one serving, you're getting 40 to 70% of your daily amount of that thing, right? A serving of Brazil nuts, which is going to be my recommendation for selenium, gives you about 840% of your recommended amount of selenium. It is fucking loaded with selenium. You do not need a serving. If you did, you'd be having like 500 calories, so I don't recommend that. That wouldn't be that much, 300 calories or so. 1 to 2 Brazil nuts, small to medium Brazil nuts on a regular basis. Consume them as part of your daily fat intake. They are quite fatty, but they are the types of fats your body likes. Maybe have them as a snack between meals, as a pudding or something. Consuming that on a regular basis, and that's kind of on average. Like, I have that selenium response as well. I have a pack behind me somewhere. Do I consume them every single day? No, sometimes I forget. But on average, I'm probably having 1 to 2 daily to get my selenium in.
Amazing. So I've got a P5P.
Yep.
Add egg whites, add some Brazil nuts. Make sure I've got the right type of P5P, methylene, cobalamin.
Oh, sorry, that's B12, methylcobalamin.
Yeah, and that, even like, we've only just touched the tip of the iceberg here, I'm guessing. So, but these are some very simple things I can change. So I'll show off my 6-pack in July. I'll credit Alex.
Nice.
and we'll go from there. But I really appreciate taking time to talk to us about this. It's been super interesting. I think I'll have a lot of follow-up questions for you on this. And hopefully technically everything went well. It's a good experience for us to do this sort of live streaming. And as always, you can watch this later. And if you have any questions, reach out to me or Alex on LinkedIn or the other social profiles we have. So that's it from me. Much love. And we'll see you guys around.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it, Matt. Thanks for having me.